next to him. That's Dr. George, thank you, George Washington Carver. A lot of times people say the inventor of peanut butter. You know, a lot more involved in that, and that even requires a deeper discussion. Okay. Post-Reconstruction, I already mentioned this, that basically one's success was predicated on finding helpful or paternalistic rights. The stealing of land, of black land, was common. So black people who had farms were going to have a hard time keeping them because there were no laws that would have recognized or protected black landowners that was consistently applied. I also mentioned Rosewood and Tulsa. I can come back to that later. Jim Crow laws from the 1890s, which just become worse. And then essentially, I'm just highlighting the highlight areas, black folks couldn't vote, so without the franchise, how can you protect your political rights? Right? This is why you'll have the Civil Rights Movement and the Voting Rights Act movement that occurs in the early 1960s. There's Dr. George Washington Carver again with Henry Ford, the automotive industrial pioneer. Here's an article that Jim shared. Madison County Colored says the most commendable enterprise is that of the Madison County Colored Chautauqua to be held in Ball Park at Richmond. This is Richmond, Kentucky. August 4th through the 8th. Through the cooperation of Miss Bell, H. Bennett, and others, a most admirable program is provided with something good for every member of the family. Music, readings, entertainment, jubilee songs, and speaking by very distinguished orators. It talks about who they were. You can't read it too clearly, but one of them, of course, is saying Professor Carver, but also Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, among others. And of course, there's Dr. Du Bois, for those of you who may recognize him. Du Bois estimated that in the 19th century, black farmers owned some 3 million acres in 1875 and 8 million in 1890. By 1900, they owned 12 million acres. Now, think about this later. 1920 was the peak year in the number of non-white owners, but understand, non-white owners would have also included people identified as Native American, but were not on the quote-unquote reservations. So this will also change drastically. Who was that? Fannie Lou Hamer, right? Mississippi tongue-tied. Freedom Democratic Party. Jim is going to share some of his experiences with regard to his work with his family's connection to Fannie Lou Hamer. A couple of other slides. Earth as Mother, Earth-centric, human-centric. Decolonize, indigenize, resist, reclaim, and reimagine. Right? This is part of, and again, these are slides that are specific to where Jim is going to be sharing here in the next 3 minutes. Ujamaa, which is the practice of cooperative economics from an African-American holiday known as Kwanzaa, right? Kwanzaa, right? But this idea of Ujamaa, which is a Kiswahili word. Jim is also and I are going to talk about this idea of the spiritual connections in terms of, what kind of ancestor do you want to be, which is a book that was edited with several people. I won't read that whole thing. If necessary, I'll come back to it later. Question: what's the traditional African view of the earth or land? Right? What's the traditional African view of the earth or land? That's something else that will come up inevitably. Farming cooperatives. What's a cooperative or a co-op? Basically, the workers of the labor force owns and controls the affairs of it. So if you have cooperative farming, it means that there's a collection of people working within that capacity. Many cooperatives would follow the civil rights movement in the 1960s. This is one that I believe I guess it's still there, it was in Minnesota, Wedge Community Foods. Some of you may recognize, I know you recognize Dr. King, but do you recognize the person to his right? That's Elijah Muhammad, who was the teacher of Malcolm X and Louis Farrakhan. The Nation of Islam had established a cooperative in the 1960s, cooperative farming. It didn't do well initially because they didn't have the proper people who were properly educated to be good farmers. So they ended up selling off a lot of the land. They got part of it back in the 1990s when Farrakhan, who was the present leader, bought 1,600 of the original 5,000 acres that they had held. And ironically, even today, they have a Ministry of Agriculture. So the Nation of Islam, which is a homegrown African-American Islamic organization, has a Ministry of Agriculture with its focus on developing a staple food program primarily to serve Black and poor communities. Okay, and then the last two slides for perspective. Today, the Department of Agriculture estimates 40,000 Black farmers in America. Only less than 1% of the nation's farmland, as compared to 95% owned by the white counterparts. But just later, earlier in 1993, the U.S. District Court awarded the Black farmers who were part of the class action lawsuit litigation $1.2 billion because they said that the U.S. government had engaged in racist practices in terms of loans and access to finances to assist in farming. So while the number of Black farmers in the U.S. had peaked in 1920 when there were almost 1 million, the 2023 census, 3.4 million total farmers, only 1.3% or 4,500, 45,000. So now Black farmers are a mere 0.52% of the population of farmers. That being said, I'm going to now segue into an introduction of Jim Embry. Jim is the grandson of small farmers who were also social activists. Jim's activism began in 1959 when he was 10 years old and a member of CORE, which is the Congress of Racial Equality. It was within the civil rights movement that Jim began a lifelong mission and passion for social justice. Since then, he's participated in most of the major social justice movements of his time. After 50-odd years of activism, his current work and writings continue to seek to restore sacred connections with Mother Earth while creating a socially just and sustainable world that reflects and shares the highest ideals of being human. In 2001, he speaks of a critical chapter in his life when he moved to Detroit to serve as the director of the Boggs Center to Nurture Community Leadership, honoring 30 years of political collaboration with Ginny and Grace Lee Boggs. While in Detroit, his work centered around urban agriculture and food justice, which led him to give tours to kindred spirits around the world, including members of the British Parliament, the Nobel Peace Committee, Hopi elders, and other luminaries like Danny Glover, David Corton, Vincent Harding, Ossie Davis, and many others. Since returning to Kentucky in 2006 and founding the Sustainable Communities Network, Jim's continued his work around restorative and food justice. He believes that a local, healthy, and just food system is the foundation of a sustainable community. His international travel has included Brazil's World Social Forum, Italy's Terra Madre, or International Slow Food Gatherings as opposed to fast food, Cuba's Workers' Confederation, and numerous Caribbean islands to scuba dive. So he still finds time to, or has in the past found time to scuba dive. Jim says of himself, he is stardust, condensed in human form, and collaborates with kindred spirits at the local, national, and international levels to create beloved communities where every human being and all Earth community members, water people, air people, rock people, animal people, and plant people are all embraced as sacred beings. So some of you are probably looking like, what are you talking about? Hopefully you won't by the end of this evening. Jim enjoys his 30-acre family farm and continues to do his best to balance community activism, writing, and soil activism. So let's welcome our elder teacher, Brother Jim Embry.
I was born by the river and little old Jim, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. But I know change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it is. I'm honored to be here on the Berea College campus. This is where my great-grandfather, who'd been enslaved, his dad fought in the Civil War, his dad died in the Civil War. It's been a long time coming. And it's going to come. 250 years. Our folk. I'm saying all of our folk. Because when you're enslaved, you can enslaved physically, with chains on your legs and around your neck. You can also be enslaved mentally, psychologically. For few folks this way for so long. So it's an honor to be here where my great-grandfather walked into school. My great-grandfather and his mother and 6 siblings, and the day before he got killed, were at Camp Nelson, where John Fee was. He was walking back from Cincinnati, and he got around Berea. Almost got killed. Okay? White guy. Talking about, education. Men and women. And black folk too. Some white folks said, we don't like that, and burned his house down, and he fled for many years. And then when Abraham Lincoln, in 1863, was losing the war, and also getting their ass kicked by General Lee. Okay, losing the war. Because 2 years prior, you know, Lincoln's dear friend, President Douglas, said, hey, not black men and black women fight. And it's also white man's war. It's white man's war. So, Lincoln then ushered in, we now call the U.S. colored troops. Black men and black women, like Harry Tubman. And some black women wanted to fight so bad, they would disguise themselves as men. Long time coming. Long time coming. Can you imagine black folk who were enslaved, been told, we're going to recruit you all, we're going to give y'all some guns. Now, wait a minute now, you're going to give brothers some guns? Some white people? Everybody ran. The point is, I call that U.S. colored troops, I call it legalized armed rebellion. Okay? Because we've been rebelling since we got here. We've been rebelling since Goree Island. Long time coming. Change is going to come. And that was a big change. But the war was won. We defeated Lee because 200,000 black men and women fought to defeat Lee. But no one in the history books tells you that. And they mustered in. I have on my, we have an outside family, 3 great-grandfathers fought in the Civil War, 3. We have all the military records. You muster in, you get a document that says, what's your occupation? What do you think was the occupation of some 200,000 black troops? Farmers. Okay? The scheme was about, you know, African Americans, agriculture, activism. These were farmers that saved the Union. But no one tells you that. You probably read college. These folks saved the Union. If they hadn't fought and hadn't won the war, we would be like South Korea, North Korea. There'd be no UN. There'd be no Berea College. The world would be very different than it is now. But you don't learn that. When the war ended with the surrender in Appomattox, again, we had 2 folks in Madison County. I have an article here. You're welcome to take that article. It's about those troops and putting them up to the end and things like that. But then that was shipped. So the war ended, or the surrender in April. And then 10,000 black troops were sent to Galveston in May to defeat remaining Confederate troops, secure the border, and begin the campaign for almost not successful genocide against Native people. We call them Buffalo soldiers. We've got to come to terms with that. That's another whole lecture. But now, in June, wherever you all are, you're going to celebrate Juneteenth. Okay? Emancipation Day, Jubilee Day, Freedom Day. I'm fine with all of that. What we learned is that General Granger came in on the white horse and announced Juneteenth. It was in June. Back in May, 10,000 black troops marched into Galveston. Can you imagine what might have happened there in Galveston? When you saw 10,000 black people marching in white folks said, what the hell's going on, mother? What the hell's happening here? Black folks said, hallelujah, we're saved. So I'm suggesting you all, as you're celebrating Juneteenth, that I've done numerous editorials. So yes, it's Emancipation Day, it's Jubilee Day. They're already regarded as Reunification Day. You have July 4th, right? We call it Independence Day. I encourage us as a nation to talk about Reunification Day. That experience, again, if it hadn't been this victory, brought out about by 200,000 black men and women who were farmers, the world would be entirely different. But no one teaches that. And the role of Berea College in helping to foster and inspire that kind of activism. So I'm trying to draw the point that this school, this area, is like a cauldron of activism. That's why it's called Carter G. Woodson. Okay? The founder. As Brother Jose had mentioned, even before Carter G. got here, black men and black women were raising hell, forming cooperatives, forming churches, businesses, and things like that, post the Civil War. Those are the seeds of activism and agriculture. But we don't forget that the USA was founded upon two contradictions. One was stolen land from indigenous people. I heard Brother Jose have a slide talking about black land laws. Black land stolen. As we're speaking that, you hear something about being decolonized. If we're only talking about black land laws, and don't begin with the land being sold from indigenous people, then we're operating as a colonizer. Mm-hmm. We're a colonizer. We must get those two together. Other contradiction was enslaving Africans. Called stolen labor. They were kind of combined at the hip. Stolen land from indigenous people. Stolen land to do what? To do agriculture. Okay? The country's founding contradiction, and right now, most of our injustices are now pervasive, simply from that original contradiction. We were here early in Sister Hughes from D.C., I think, right? And, this morning I was in D.C. since last Thursday for some conferences and meetings and family. This morning at 5 a.m., hopped in my car, 5 a.m. to get down here. Got around 3, went home, changed clothes, grabbed my laptop, came over here for this evening. So I appreciate you all being here. It's an honor, it's a blessing. I was sharing earlier that we were having called the Cumberland Seed Commons spring convening here on the campus. Again, April 20th through 23rd. Mm-hmm. You're all welcome to attend. Now, Sister Valentine here, I know from other engagements, has already signed up to do spoken word. Okay? And it's convening. And the door is open for you all as well. We're going to have different artists, musicians, painters, sculptors, whatever, come in. And we especially want students. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
You're going to be there.
Yep.
And what she said she's going to do off the dome now, off the dome, freestyling. Going to bring some noise. Mm-hmm. About seed, things like that. So we invite you all to be a part of that in April. Our farm goes back to 1800. Just wait a minute now, You mind? I'm not okay? I'm not Okay? You can't, there's no way the black folk, have farmed 1800. I didn't say. You know, I said, houses of stewardship. This place goes back to 1800. We brought largely out of Nigeria, through Virginia, brought across the mountains, right through 1800. So we're saying, as a family, we claim stewardship, love, honor the land here, where we live now, since 1800. We don't just mark our stewardship when we bought the farm in 1889 from those who stole the farm. All those years, where I live now, what idea of stewardship? The grandmamas, in 1800, were doing what? Their sweat, their brow, their menstrual blood. Babies were dropping in the fields. Okay? I'm just being for real. Okay? And so I'm saying that our sense of place was there. Work the land, love the land, had babies since 1800 to 160 years. And we're saying that's not ours? I invite all of us to go through a kind of a personal reckoning. Talk about this, well, you talk about this spirituality in the land. Now, I'm going to say, when they ask me some questions, we got a lot. I've heard people say, well, Embry, you're part of the food movement. I'm not. Okay? You're a food, I'm not. Does everybody here eat?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wasn't like that all. Okay, everybody eats. But this colonial mentality, this Eurocentric, Newtonian, tells us, no, we're not gardeners and farmers. And we're not connected to these sacred things that make us up. Well, Jose Chilton's talking about George Washington Carver. One of his quotes is, he says, and justice to the soil is injustice to the farmer. He meant black farmers. He says, correspondingly, and injustice to the farmer, injustice to the soil. It was about saving black soil and black souls.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I lie a lot. But you all help me, if you're a Bible student, I'm not, but somewhere it's just Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Maybe just ask you this, because I just watched, by the way, living in D.C. I watched One Love. But Bob Marley, it's the joint. You have to go see it, okay? Anyway, in the film, it talks about his spirituality. Somewhere in Genesis, I'm the third verse. God bent down, picked up soil, dirt, hummus, formed it up, and breathed up with life. So what we call dirt, soil, the sacred medium. We're not taught that. We talk about agriculture, activism. We should be thank you, dirt, soil, minerals, fungi, for making me who I am. You talk about sacred relationships. My point is to talk about activism. It just began when folks like Carver, Du Bois, Fannie Lou Hamer, one wearing a tie, and my crazy ass begins millennia ago. So our work is to connect with all that's gone before us, all that's here now, and all that will be. That's how we become good ancestors. That kind of thing. I'm going to say that brother say a few words and questions, whatever.
Okay. I am going to, of course, take questions that are related to some of the things that I shared, and of course, related to the things that our elder Jim is sharing, Brother Embry is sharing as well. But I want to start with a question that I think it's particularly relevant to me because I wanted to know what it was that made you recognize the importance of becoming, if you will, an agricultural activist, along with the social activism that took you back to, like you said, 10 years old working with CORE.
No disrespect. I said I had about 3 or 4 hours sleep, I'm driving all day. I'm kind of like, I'm getting a little, like I said, and walk so I don't fall. Sleep over here, okay? I'm for real now, okay? So it's been a long day. You know, I come from a family, I call ourselves agrarian intellectual activists. As both pointed out, what we call agriculture developed some 15,000 years ago. Okay? Agriculture. And that was a gift of women, by the way. Okay, a gift of women. So part of our rhetoric about I'm not connected to gardening and farming, and I'm not involved in agriculture because if you're a woman, you deny your own contribution to the scope of humanity's leap in development of agriculture. Now, we as men throw up as well. Every woman here should say, yes, I'm involved in agriculture. It was our gift to humanity. And we're still carrying that with us as an opportunity. We're still carrying that. Again, 15,000 years ago. How we wrote without agriculture, which means you're collecting seeds. Okay, it means you're gathering seeds up. You know what happened? The men were away, we say, hunting and gathering, and sometimes they didn't come back at all. They got eaten up by an animal or fell off the cliff. Moms were saying, hey man, we got babies to feed. Okay, we got people, babies who are hungry, and you promised to bring food back, and you didn't come back yet. So women said, what are we going to do? And we began reflecting and looking at things growing and put this with the seed, into the relationship. It was agriculture. We should all claim that as our birthright as humans developing. So when I was growing up, the question, where I live now, so my mom, her side of the family, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, back there, all lived. From my home to the church, the school, the whole community folk. And I grew up on the farm, working and learning before the farm. Playing with the frogs and the snakes and birds and the used to be, grasshoppers and whatever else. But also hearing the stories we were told. My mom would tell and say, Granddad said his dad didn't sit in the Civil War. He died in the war. Okay? His wife had 6 kids, 2 single parents. I would hear those stories over and over again. I'm from 2 years old, I recall at a family meeting, Mom told me the story. I said, Mom, let's read about, Civil War and fighting in the war and her mom Elizabeth, and her husband dying in the war and whatever else. So I've heard the story 20 times, told a new story. And she said, boy, you hush up. Because one day, you're going to be thankful. Mm-hmm. You should hear the story. In the 90s, Because Mom said, well, you know, Granddad went to Berea College. I said, go over there and see what's going on at Berea College. It's in the 90s. I go to the Registrar of Archives building. I said, hey, according to family history, we had a student here who was our grandfather, great-grandfather, for me. What she tell us? They went back about, maybe less than a half hour at the archives. They brought back this big old lecture book. It was like that big lecture book. Brought it out, said, we think we found it. And this lecture book, it's like a transcript book. Was our great-grand's name? Dewey Balloon. Grades he got? Teacher comments. I brought it home to my mom and she just cried. Just cried. I said, well, you know, that was the oral history. So the point is, how did I learn it? Through oral history. I take the oral history, and the essay again here describes those stories. You know, now you got to have primary source. You know, you got to have. I got it all in there. You know, he mentioned the College of Top book, 1919, Carver Boys, I.D. Wells, which we read here 3 times. Okay, right here on the campus in Richmond. I'm hearing those stories. As a matter of fact, you read it with me. Okay, I did. This is a great book here about the Green Vision. I mentioned that, Carver and Ford. Carver wrote about 44 bulletins in his time in Tuskegee. All the illustrations, all the writing, they were all free. My mom kept telling me oral history. But you know, Jimmy, Granddad, he was a Berea College graduate. College school. Over there, Roosevelt School, over in Richmond, okay? And your Granddad was always reading, and I was reading them bulletins. I thought she meant almost almanacs. I'm sure it was that. What it really was the Carver bulletins. In 44. There was continue there. I had one of the original ones, not from my granddad, but I found it online. You know, you can look at it, kind of torn, you know, brown. One of the original Carver bulletins. What it means, ancestors. What it means is, I'm touching this booklet, I'm touching the spirit of Carver, and all the people who are farming in the South, forming cooperatives. We had a cooperative here. Okay, so those are the ways that we can find these direct vibrations about farming. But let's kind of, the family and oral history. Yeah.
Thank you. Just for context, for me, growing up, and I grew up on Long Island, New York. For many of us growing up in New York, unless you were in upstate, the connection between the importance of farming and agriculture in our everyday lives is just not there. The friends, the people that I had who had folks who were from the South would often talk about returning South. In a few cases, you had people who said they went back to their family farm. What you heard coming, at least from a lot of northern raised folk, and I'm talking about particularly in the black community, was a fear of going south to work on a farm, or why would I want to be involved in farming, right? My ancestors got off the plantation. So there's this cultural notion of rejection of connectedness to the land, which is pathological. That's pathological. I had an uncle in Bermuda, because part of my family is from Bermuda, right? They had a farm. I would go as a kid, and one of my uncles would basically, talk to me about the importance of farming and say, come over and help me with this horse. And I'm 11, 12 years old, but I'm afraid of that horse. Right? He won't bother you. And also talking about the importance of farming. Now, this was small. This is not a large farm. You're talking about maybe 11 acres. But just the idea of having that put in my mental craw to see the importance of farming. It stayed with me. In spite of the fact that as a kid, I'm going past a farm that was established in 1670 by the Dutch, a place called Grossman's Farm, right? So things that are hidden in plain view. But would you say that this is still an issue, that many of us within the African American or the black community don't consider the importance of farming and agriculture because of this kind of conditioning? That's why I went through the time talking about the backstory, the history, right? Because a lot of people felt if I become successful, what's going to happen if I become successful? What's going to happen? Someone's going to try to take it, right? There's still this attitude or the association with enslavement, which is, again, pathological. It's not the same argument to have because, like you said, African people, Asian, European peoples have been farming for millennia. It's the only way we're here. Organizations like the NOI would set up that cooperative, right? Again, Malcolm X, many of you heard of, was also talking about the importance of self-sufficiency, etc. But what's your take on contemporary attitudes?
Okay. Cindy, if you don't mind, I can stay awake. Without a doubt, you've already said it, that within this 500-year USA experiment, colonization, we're still colonized. And here at college, from the day you step in here, and you're a freshman, first year, you graduate, they'll have every semester a class on how do you decolonize yourself. One of the major questions of the century. Because all around the world, there are wars going on, Middle East, Africa, Latin America, Asia. There are the remnants of European colonization. Oh, you Africans, we're going to make up these states, these countries that cross cultural boundaries. Anyway, I won't go into this, a whole other story. Those are the impacts of colonization. So yes, you honor that, the idea that, well, we brought you all over here from Africa to do what? To do agriculture, which means white folks saying, farming is beneath us. Okay, it's beneath us. And you own it. It's only the task of enslaved people who aren't even fully human anyway. And we're still struggling with that whole construct. What I say is, the land, the dirt, the hummus, all that's there, didn't exploit, didn't rape, didn't kill, didn't shackle us. Some real people did.
Yep.
Not the soil, not the land. Because we've been colonized, we prefer, we don't want to be a dirt farmer. We don't want to touch the soil. Even though the soil makes me, what you've been told is, what makes you, you call it the enemy. You call it the no good, SOB, whatever else. But we're saying we have to reclaim the sense of spirituality around humans and so on, because it makes us. But beyond just this situation, if you go, I mentioned earlier about women develop agriculture. And in parts of the world, who are the farmers? Women. In some cultures, not all, in some countries, because women do the farming, looked down upon by men. Yeah. Y'all do the farming. Where's all the important stuff? So you got that part of the baggage you were carrying. Okay? You go to Europe, you have big, huge castles, you have kings and queens, the royal family in the castle, within the moat and everything. They didn't grow food in the castle. Where did they grow food? The peasantry, the poor people, the least of these grew the food. When Europeans came over here, they had the same mentality. You know, if you're a politician, if you're a lawyer, government person, you're important. Not if you're a farmer. Farmers have the highest suicide rate. They work 2 jobs. One on the farm, 50 hours a week, and one off the farm. Okay? Because of all of this kind of constructs, that's why we have this diminished view who work the land. Now, I was joking, you know, I came up from DC, I've been this year, I've been to Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Stanford twice, down Tuskegee, worked with Cornell, in a few weeks. I was in Ohio State University for 2 days, 2 weeks ago. Same conversation we're having here. So I did land, agriculture, activism. How do we bridge the gap? I said, there is no gap. There is no gap. We're eating every day. We're eating dirt. When we eat a plant, you're eating dirt secondhand. You eat an animal, you're eating dirt third hand. So, hard-working students here at Berea, this great school, a great foundation, the school had a farm all around it. You couldn't go up to Walmart and get food in the 1850s. It was all grown right here. But here's where we should begin to tear away the sense of disconnection. Okay? The sense of, oh, no, it's over there. So we've got some unlisted peel away. My point is, they're multi-layered. And they were called Ohio. So look here, what we should do, I love me some bee. I don't need queen bee in my hands. I'm not Beyonce. Love Mr. Lizzo and, Snoop and all those folks. We got a priority school. It's huge. I love me some, Seth Curry and Ron James. But we're paying those folks $30, $40, $50 million a year to sing, put a ball in a hoop, and we're barely paying the farmers, not paying hardly all the farm workers. And I said, we're all here at Berea College. You got some work to do. You're saying, well, maybe we need to rethink. Okay? Who are the essential workers every day? That's the work.
All right, thank you. I'm going to make just 1 or 2 comments, then in the interest of time, I'm going to open it up because I said that I wanted to give people a chance
No, it's gonna die. Plug it up.
to ask questions. One of the things that I thought about when Jim said
Plug it up. I got
about the
chargers.
suicide rate among farmers is I'm curious as to when that was the case. Right? When suicide became, as you said, essentially suicide ideations is the highest, you said, among farmers. So I wonder, what time frame that begins in. The other thing has to do with this idea of presently we have an emphasis on industrial farming. Some of you may know that Bill Gates is involved in buying up large tracts of land, and the idea of independent farming is going to become more and more challenging. Is that something that is going to be problematic? Because if a smaller and smaller contingent or oligarchs control land and production of food, what does that say for the larger populations? It's something to also consider. The other thing that I was thinking of sharing, listening to Brother Jim, is this idea of the importance of listening to the stories of elders. It's the same thing that I did. We have that in common, where I was intrigued by hearing what my uncle and what my grandfather and what my aunt had to say about their experiences and contextualizing that to try to make a better way, not just for myself, but in the world. So with that being said, let me just say, are there any questions or comments? Because I know we've only got maybe, like, I'm going to say 5 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, sorry.
One of the things when we were talking about how, like how a lot of black people move up north, my family is from Detroit, so.
He's in the house. He's in the house.
But one of the things my great grandmother was saying a lot was how she was tired of farming and cooking for everybody. Especially after my great granddad died. She said that she was tired of like doing all that stuff. But then what I noticed with my family is that like my mom and my grandma, they both are like, my grandma's alive. She's in Flint now. She is very interested in using it to farm and to, she has her own like, plumbing and stuff and everything. So, both my mom and her are a lot more interested in agriculture and farming, even just for themselves, a lot more than my grandma was. And I think it was definitely like, my great grandma didn't want to be associated with farming anymore because she was kind of putting it together with like this like stuff. So I thought that was interesting.
So, I mean, basically, you affirmed one of the points I was making, that that's still part of that mindset that is obviously very destructive. Good.
Let me offer real quickly for you all 2 references that pretty much address all the questions Brother May here raised up. And my sometimes goofy ass answers are actually, many of them are addressed much more detail in 2 books. There ought to be a new reference. One's Farming While Black, okay? Neil Penniman, it's called Soul Fire Farm, upstate New York. In my view, it ought to be the Bible of the century. I'm thinking for real. This book right here ought to be the Bible for the century. It addresses rituals, questions of land this and that, how to do farming is practical, how to do rituals, right here. Okay, that book ought to be part, when you come in and you do like a book read from the entire campus, you see one right here. The second book right here called We Are Each Other's Harvest, that also features on the front cover, right here's Leah Penman's book. On the front cover here is also Leah Penman's Naima. I'm saying this image, in my view, is also the image for the century. The image of 2 sisters, 2 black women, holding hoes, projecting the idea of land connection. But not just about 2 black women. Okay? It's about all of us need to do what? Land connect. Much like World War II, you saw Rose of the Riveter. That was an image in industrial age. What we're saying now, this image, ought to be an image for the century, because it connotes everyone. I could be lying again, and I lie a lot, I lie a lot. The word woman contains woman and man. Female says man. So I'm saying, let's begin to associate womanhood. Check those books out, and you get some great reflection.
And of course, the whole idea of Mother Earth, the concept of basically, engendering the earth as feminine is an affirmation of everything we're talking about. And so many cultures recognize this idea of Mother Earth, right? Yep. And so the seeding of the earth comes from the sky. So I won't get into all of it now, but even Kemetic or ancient Egyptian cosmology has something that reflects that same idea. But it's not just in Kemet. You can look at different African traditions, and I'm sure Asian and certainly indigenous traditions and European traditions that recognize the connection with the earth as a feminine principle. And so women would be seen as being able to draw more of that harvest from mother because of the relationship. Both of us, meaning woman and earth, gives birth to what provides for life. So the whole idea, I mean, it's all connected there. Any other questions or comments? Okay. All right, well, we just say this. Thank, of course, Brother Jim Embry for coming out, and thank you all for coming out.
Yeah.
The event, of course, if you want to get in contact with Jim, you can do that here before he leaves, or if you contact me and then I can, put you in contact. The event that is in April, what are the dates for that again?
April 20th is like on our farm, like a birthday gathering, people coming in from Belize, Trinidad, Puerto Rico, all around the country. And then we begin the farm tour here on that Sunday, the 21st. Farm here at the horticultural farm, in the Berea Urban Farm, that's Sunday. Dinner at Boone's Tavern, if you come. Then Monday and Tuesday we're going to be out at Sister Wendy's place at the Forestry Outreach Center for 2 full days of sessions.
Yes.
Come out and hang out, and if you come with your A game, okay, So
Yep.
I'm going to go up to Dome, okay, do a freestyle something. Y'all coming? Let's do some public. Oh, love y'all.
Yes.
Thank you again for coming out. Forgive me, I'm getting over a cold, which is part of the reason why I was almost choking.